Greetings, guitar fanatics. Hey, do you want to learn a scale that's been used for decades by some of the most legendary blues, rock, and fusion guitar players? It's been called the Jeff Beck scale. It's been called the Jan Hammer scale. It's been used by players like Eric Johnson, Joe Bonamassa, Billy Gibbons, Greg Koch, and Andy Timmons. This scale can even sound sort of Middle Eastern because it's got this unique half-step interval right in the middle of it. And actually, sometimes it's referred to as the Indian pentatonic or the Hindu pentatonic scale. The super awesome thing about it is it's actually just a different pentatonic scale made by changing one note from the minor pentatonic scale, which is a scale we probably all know and use all the time. In this video, I'm going to show you the Mixolydian Pentatonic scale, and I promise you when you learn it, your guitar solos are going to improve massively. We're going to talk about how the scale is built and how to play it all over the neck. Then we're going to learn some cool phrasing to optimize the unique sound of the scale and even some examples of how the legends use it. Please do that like and subscribe thing. Grab your guitars, grab a cup of your favorite beverage, and let's get to work. So the Mixolydian Pentatonic, as the prefix penta would suggest, a 5-note scale, so it's a pentatonic scale, that we're going to make by changing just one note of the minor pentatonic. Now, we're going to be using the key of G today for our examples, and the notes of G minor pentatonic are as follows. We've got our root G, minor third, which is B flat, fourth, which is C, the fifth, which is D, and the flat 7. Now, to get the Mixolydian pentatonic, we're just going to change one note, and that note is the flat third. We're going to change that to the major third. Now, to get Mixolydian pentatonic, we're going to have the root, major third, the fourth, fifth, and then the flat 7. Now, the reason that this scale sounds so good over so many rock and blues progressions is that it contains all 4 notes of the dominant 7 chord. We've got the root, we've got the major third, we've got the fifth, and we've got the flat 7. Now, a lot of times we'll hear players using minor pentatonic in that case, but the minor pentatonic has the flat third. And if you play the flat third against the major third, you get this weird sort of clashing sound, and the Mixolydian Pentatonic takes care of all of that. Plus, we've got the fourth in there, which can give our lines sort of a sus4 sound, and who doesn't love that tonality? So here is a diagram of 5 box patterns of Mixolydian pentatonic that sort of correspond with the box patterns of the typical pentatonics that we would play. Let's go through a couple of them. First pattern, we have our root, major third, fourth, fifth, flat 7, root again, major third, fourth, fifth, flat 7, root again, up to the major third. Second pattern, we're going to start on the major third, so we've got the major third and fourth. We've got the fifth and flat 7th. We've got our root. We've got our major third, fourth and fifth, the flat 7 and the root, and then major third and fourth again. I'll let you work through the rest of them on your own, but as you can see, again, we're just learning box patterns. And I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to make the diagrams for these box patterns plus some different shapes that we're going to learn available in a link down below in the description if you want to download those and work on them yourself. So those are our familiar box patterns. Let me show you a different pattern that really falls under the fingers nicely also. Now I'm going to refer to these as 2-3 patterns because we're going to play 2 notes on a string, then 3 notes on a string, etc., all the way across the fretboard. Let's check out a 2-3 pattern starting on the flat 7 on the low E string. So that would be our F note at the first fret. So we're going to play F and G, which is flat 7 in the root. That's our 2 notes on the E string. Then we're going to play the B, C, and D on the A string. We're going to play flat 7 and root again on the D string. Then we're going to play major 3rd, 4th, and 5th on the G string. Then we're going to play our flat 7, root again on the B string. Then we're going to go to the high E and we're going to play major 3rd, 4th, and the 5th. Okay, we could start another 2-3 pattern on the major 3rd or the B note, and we would play on the low E, B, C, D, or major 3rd, 4th, 5th, and then we're going to play flat 7 in the root on the 5th string. Then we're going to go major 3rd, 4th, 5th again on the D string. Then we've got flat 7 and root on our G string. Then we're going to go to the B at the 12th fret of the B string and play major 3rd, 4th, 5th, and then our flat 7 and the root on the high E. We could start this thing at the 5th, which is the D note at the 10th fret of the low E. We're going to play the 5th and flat 7 on the low E. Then we're going to play the root, major 3rd, and 4th on our A string. Then we're going to play 5th, flat 7 on the D string. Then we're going to go root, 4th, 5th. And then lastly, we're on the B string. We're going to play our 5th, flat 7, and then we've got our root, 4th, and 5th on our high E. Now, with all of these forms, it's almost kind of instinctive to start using a little shift slide with that half step between the B and C, which is the major 3rd and the 4th, like this in the first pattern that we played. Or even in that last pattern that we played. And that brings us to an interesting point and the difference between the Mixolydian pen and the minor pentatonic. Well, actually, in both of our major and minor pentatonic scales, there's no half-step intervals. The Mixolydian pentatonic has a half step between the 3rd and 4th intervals, and this half step makes it very easy to do some interesting phrasing, moving back and forth between the 3rd and 4th, and then maybe bending the flat 7 to the root like this. And it's this sort of an Eastern tonality that it has to it. And I think that's what attracted guys like Jeff Beck and Eric Johnson. You know, Indian music was kind of all the rage back in the late 60s, for instance, with John McLaughlin doing his thing with Mahavishnu Orchestra. And he was very influential to rock musicians that were looking for something extra and interesting to add to their playing. John was a big influence on Jeff Beck and Eric Johnson. And you can hear the scale and some of the weird phrasing techniques in the melody of Jeff's song, Lead Boots, off of the record Wired. Or how about the tune Camel's Night Out by Eric Johnson on the record Venus Isle? Now, just the title, Camel's Night Out, tells you he was really feeling that Eastern tonality. This is over a G chord. Listen for this scale. How about the melodic theme and the solo of the middle of the Eric Johnson song, Nothing Can Keep Me From You, off his classic record, Avia Musicom. Now, this was over the progression A to G. Now, that's a classic Mixolydian progression when you've got two major chords a whole step apart. Here's the melodic theme. Now, blues rock legend Billy Gibbons used this scale to handle the 5 chord in a song off one of their first records. It was called Sure Got Cold After the Rain Fell. And this is a slow blues in A. So the 5 chord was an E7. So he handled that E7 chord like this. So that is just a really classic handling of that E7 or the 5 chord in A. As a matter of fact, you could use that lick over all 3 of the dominant 7 chords in a typical blues. So in a blues in A, we got E7, D7, A7. The lick over E, over D, and over A7. Of course, you'd want to change it around and improvise a little bit. You don't want to use the same lick over and over, but I think you get the picture. There's another great Eric Johnson lick from the song Desert Rose, which just had an epic guitar solo in it that's on the record Avia Musicom. So near the end of the solo, over an E-flat chord, he plays something like this. So here's another little phrasing trick it's in both the melody of Lead Boots and the melody of Camel's Night Out. And Eric Johnson and Jeff Beck, they both add an extra half-step bend from the 6 to the flat 7. Now in the key of G, that would be from E to F. Now, you pair that with the bend from the 4th to the 5th, and you're going to really start to hear that Eastern tonality. So let's take that extra bend, and we're going to take the lick from the ending of the Desert Rose solo. We're going to transpose that up to G, so we've got the notes B and C at the 14th and 15th frets. We've got D and F at the 15th and 18th frets of our B string. And then we're going to have G, B, and C up on our high E string. And we can get a lick like this. Now, the last concept I'm going to show you here is an example of some Eric Johnson-ish kind of sequencing. And what we're going to do here is we're going to descend through the scale by playing the first note on a string, or the highest note on a string, and we're going to descend 4 notes. Then we're going to go back to the second note, or the lowest note of that particular pattern on the string that we started on, and we're going to descend 5 notes. So in the key of G, we're going to go up to the 19th fret. We're going to play 4 notes descending, starting on that 19th fret. We're going to go back to the 15th fret of our high E string. We've got our root note, descend 5 notes. Then we're going to go to our B string. We're going to be at the 18th fret, descend 4 notes. Go to the 15th fret, we're going to descend 5 notes. We go to our G string, we're at the 17th fret, we're going to descend 4 notes. We're going to go to the 16th fret and we're going to descend 5 notes. Then on our D string, we're going to descend 4 notes. We're going to be starting at the G note at the 17th fret. Then we're going to go to the F note at the 15th fret and descend 5 notes. So that, my friends, is the Mixolydian Pentatonic scale. It's another killer tool for your guitar soloing toolbox, one that you can use to shape your blues and rock solos in all kinds of ways. Study the examples of the masters, ingrain all the things that we talked about today. Go forth and make glorious sounds. I'll see you soon.